Hey guys, Josh here, bringing you another episode of Just the Tip, where we bring you all the meat and none of the potatoes, cut straight to the chase, keep it as short and sweet as we can. So the first thing I want to do is show you what I think your sequence settings should be in regards to your resolution, because everything else can be situational. If you want the higher frame rate of 60 frames per second, then you can set that. But there needs to be a minimum resolution on your sequence of 2.7K. So what I usually do is drag my first clip onto my timeline, and then up in my toolbar, I go to Sequence and Sequence Settings, and that'll take you into your Sequence Settings screen. Now, what we're looking for here is the frame size inside the video section. We want to set that to 2704 by 1520, and that's going to be 2.7K resolution. From here, there's a few things we can do to make sure that we're getting the best image in Adobe Premiere. Now, while editing your video and dragging and dropping your resources onto the timeline, you're going to want to make sure that you right-click on whatever that resource is, that video file or that sequence or whatnot, and scale it to your frame size. And that's going to go ahead and zoom up everything and get rid of the black border around your video, because inevitably you're going to be bringing in 1080p or something of that nature, and this will scale it up to the full 2.7K. Now, in the event that you are exporting 2.7K from your GoPro, then you won't have to do anything, and your resolution will be just fine. What I want to focus on here are the export settings when we go to export our video. Just out of personal curiosity, I've tried a few different formats, and the format that I find to work the absolute best and to be the most understandable and have the most resources available when you're researching is the H.264 format. So go ahead with that. Next, you're probably going to want to provide an output name so that you can name your video something meaningful, and I'll leave that up to you to do what you like with. Next, we'll move on to your basic video settings. Now, as far as your width and height, those should be matching your source right now, which is getting that information from your sequence. If not, you can click the Match Source button at the top, where you can check the checkbox to the right side of the screen next to width and height, and it'll go ahead and do that for you. Now, towards the bottom of the screen, you're going to see, or towards the bottom of that section, the Render at Maximum Depth checkbox. That may well not be checked, and you will want to go ahead and check that. Everything else, you can leave the same. The next area that I want you to pay some attention to is the bitrate settings when you scroll down. Now, there are a few different options here, and for fast motion video, you're going to want VBR 2 pass. That's going to give you the best compromise of compression and detail that you're going to get from YouTube. Now, YouTube also has a maximum bitrate of something like 48 megabits per second. I usually round up because the file size ends up to be not that much different, to 50. Okay? Now, you can toy around with some of those other bitrate encoding modes or some of the other target bitrate bandwidth numbers and things. I'm telling you, after months of playing, these are the ones that I found to look the best. So check out some of my flight videos, and if you like the way they look and think they look great, then go ahead and just copy these settings. Now on to the last area. So all the way at the bottom of the export screen, you're going to see a section that has your metadata, queue, export, and cancel buttons. Now there's two checkboxes at the top of that section. The first is to use maximum render quality. You'll want to check that because, of course, that's exactly what we want. Now this other checkbox, a lot of people don't think to set, and that's use previews. This does a really cool thing. So a lot of us will preview our video in Premiere before we go to export it. What happens is Premiere actually has to process that segment before it can show it to you, and so it's already compiled that section. Well, if you use previews, you can drastically reduce your export time, especially for the segments of your video that have already been compiled so that you could watch them in the preview, right? So that one's going to net you a lot of value right there. Now, as far as the time interpolation, unless you're doing a lot of slow-mo, you want to leave your time interpolation set to frame sampling. You do have an option in there to use optical flow, which is really, it's going to do a lot of extra processing for and in between every frame of your video. I find it better to set that frame sampling, or sorry, that time interpolation to optical flow just for the sections that I'm using slow-mo in. It will not net you any motion blur or anything like that in your export. So I would advise you to leave it at frame sampling. It's going to get you a faster export time. So there you have it, guys. There are the settings that I use that I found to work the best. And if you go ahead and use them, I guarantee that you're going to enjoy your output much more than you may have been prior. So remember to fly safe, be smart, and happy crafting.